God here, and welcome to the Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week number 13 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California, and I know both Brad and I are super excited to give you the top 10 games in week number 13 worth actually spending some money on. Brad, how has your week been going? Anything earth-shattering happened in the National Football League in the last week?
Not in the National Football League, but in the collegiate football level. Our Minnesota Gophers, what can you say?
That's right.
They won back the Axe last week, and man, it was sweet. Nothing better than beating Wisconsin in football. That put me in a good mood on Saturday. And then my picks on Sunday put me back in a bad mood. So, it was just one of those weeks. I split. I went 500. You had a spectacular week. You're moving in on me now. I think you're, 3 games behind me or something like that for the year. But I have a good feeling about this week. It's that time of the year now where I think things start to get a little more predictable. Teams that are finding themselves out of the playoff hunt, they kind of pack it in for the year, while other teams that are starting to get on a roll kind of usually continue their roll at this time of the year. So we'll see what happens this week. It'll be a fun one, though.
It was so good to see the Paul Bunyan Axe back in Minnesota for sure. First time in 18 years that it had been won on a home field in the great state of Minnesota. I will say this about the National Football League. I am not finding the last 4 weeks to be easy at all. I think there have been so many upsets in the last 4 weeks in the National Football League that it's been sort of challenging to figure out where, if you're putting money down, where you should actually be putting your money down. And we could, recap some of the craziness that's happened in the National Football League so far. But I do agree with you, Brad. I think as we move into this sort of on the backside of this National Football League season, things for a while are going to become a little easier to predict. And I would expect that, finishing, between 60 and 70% is going to become a norm between you and me in the next couple of weeks. So no pressure on you at all.
No, the biggest challenge that we face every week, and I think one has gotten tricky, not only this year, but last year, is just the whole COVID thing. We'll pick these games on a Wednesday or whenever we pick them, and then we do the show on either Wednesday or Thursday. And then all this, I would never do that if I was actually putting money on the line, not with COVID, because so often you see players all of a sudden pop up on the weekend and they've failed a COVID test, and now they have to get a couple of negative tests before they can play, and oftentimes they don't. In this particular case, this week, tonight's game, Mike McCarthy's not going to be there for the Cowboys. How is that going to affect?
Which, Brad, I would argue is a good thing.
Yeah, it very well could be. It very well could be. But that's just one example of, what seems to be between 6 and 8 guys every week that just end up not making the trip because they've come down with COVID. And it seems like in the last couple of weeks, the pace of that has, gotten faster, guys getting COVID. So I don't know if there's more people getting COVID in the league, but it certainly seems that way. But you and I, we picked these games early. And like I said, if I was a gambling man, I wouldn't be putting any money down until at least late Friday, early Saturday, just because of of the whole COVID thing. You never know who's going to miss a game on any given week.
Yeah, and it's always a question of when you can get the best line for what you're trying to accomplish with your money that week. But just to continue down the path of COVID for a quick sec, 3 players from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are suddenly out. The biggest name player is Antonio Brown, and it's just one of those things. Like I watch a lot of basketball, both college and the NBA, and I certainly watch a significant amount of football. And as strong as the COVID protocols have been, it is sort of easy to see, when you're out in public, how easy it would be, to accidentally, do something that's going to put your ability to play and test negative at jeopardy. It literally happens to, I think, all of us all the time, and we're not, as far as I know, Brad, I'm not sitting on a $2 million contract a year to stay healthy, as a lot of these professional players are. I mean, LeBron James is an example of somebody that is also out this week as well.
All right, well, let's get into it, Dave. My first game is the Chargers at the Bengals. 2 teams that I think are pretty good football teams. I just don't know how great they are. Bengals had a big win last week, and they made a statement to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I believe it was. The Chargers have struggled a little bit. Defense isn't very good. Quarterback that's been a little more missed than hit in recent weeks. I think we both love what he brings to the table for the future of the franchise. But that's a team that is struggling right now, and they look like a young team with a young coaching staff. And the Bengals, even though they're a young team, they're playing great football, and they're at home. They went through a little bit of a down patch in the middle of the season, but what I saw last week was a team that is really feeling it. And they're at home, and they're a 3-point favorite against a struggling Charger team that has got to be starting to get road weary this year. They played all the teams on the East Coast, and that back and forth travel just catches up with you after a while. Plus the way the quarterback's playing. I'm going to take the Bengals in this one. Joe Mixon, got to love Joe Mixon. You got that text over the weekend, Dave, and you know how I feel about that kid. He's a good football player. And now that they're getting him involved in the offense, I think it's just going to make him that much more dangerous to go over the top with guys like Jamar Chase and some of the other guys they have there. Chargers are struggling to stop anybody. I'm going to take the Bengals and give the 3.
Joe Mixon last week won me $4 on FanDuel. So I will say this: I have listened to you when it comes to Joe Mixon. I think what surprises me most about this is the fact that the line is so small. I mean, when you look at what this Bengals team did last week to the Steelers, and you sort of look at where the Chargers have been, and then you're taking the Chargers and you're flying them halfway across the country, which is historically a team that does not travel well. And there'll be, a grand total of 10 baby blue jerseys in that stadium. It's like, it surprised me that this line wasn't bigger. And, it also, has me concerned that, this is a bit of a trap game. Where when we really dive into the matchups, things are a lot closer than we think they're going to be. But I'm going to go with, at this stage of the season, you see momentum plays a big role. And I think this Bengals team is really starting to ride high on where they think they can go. And I don't think they're going to take this Charger team lightly. So I'm in agreement with you on this, and I'm going to go with the Bengals as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think people of Cincinnati are pretty excited. I mean, I would be if I was them. I mean, they've at times looked really good defensively this year. And at times they've looked, absolutely spectacular on offense. And last week they looked good on both sides of the field. So I think a big home field advantage, like you said, there's not going to be many baby blue jerseys there. And I think the Bengals, they're riding high and they're looking at it like, we could win our division.
Yeah. So Brad, did you happen to sit through the Cowboy Raider game on Thanksgiving Day?
I did. Yeah. All the 850 penalties. It was brutal. The officiating. I mean, it was supposed to be, you look at the score and you think, wow, an exciting finish. But I mean, the game lasted like 4 hours. Every other play, there was a penalty. And it was really, really not a Picasso by any means. The score was great. It was an exciting finish, but it wasn't good football.
Yeah, we had to leave our house at the start of the fourth quarter and go to our friend's house for Thanksgiving, and I was so bummed. I was like, I don't. I'm gonna miss all of it, and that fourth quarter and overtime and everything just seemed to go on forever. So I was able to successfully, shake hands, say hi to everybody, and then find a really cozy spot on a couch with a cocktail and a bunch of Raider fans and catch the end of that Cowboy game, which I thought was great.
Well, it was a satisfying ending. Let's just put it that way.
It really was. Which takes us to this week's game, as Taysom Hill will be the starting quarterback. Maybe this is why they paid him all that money. I don't know. For the New Orleans Saints in this particular game. The Cowboys on the road are favored by 4.5 points. I think it's safe to say that Sean Payton is officially reaching for straws at this point. And he's going with what will turn into a ball control offense. And it's going to be all about trying to run the ball without really great running backs behind him to assist. At least, Kamara's just seems to have taken a significant step back at this point, and has clearly lost a step or two. And when you're that kind of running back, that makes a big difference in the National Football League. So they're going to play off of Taysom Hill's ability to run the ball a lot. And you'll, how many times in this Thursday night broadcast are you going to hear RPO? What's the over under on 50? Times that the announcers bring up RPO in this game. Anyways, I look at this. This is a game the Cowboys should win. I mentioned it in the opening. I don't think Mike McCarthy not being there is a devastating blow in any way for this football team. As long as Dan Quinn is continuing to call the defensive side of the ball. In fact, I hope Dan Quinn actually stays in the stands for the game and calls it from up there as opposed to down on the field, because if he proved anything in Atlanta in the last couple of years, that was not a good decision. So be looking for that in tonight's Thursday night game. With that being said, I will go with the Cowboys in this one.
Yeah, we're going to agree on this one. In fact, we're going to agree, I think, quite a bit this week. The Saints just look bad. Yeah. They look bad on offense. They look bad on defense. You used to be able to count on their defense to at least show up, and they didn't show up last week at all against Buffalo. They played Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
Last week's game was Buffalo, right? And Yeah, and they just don't have a lot of options on offense. Kamara has been dinged up, but now you're going to throw a quarterback back there who would prefer to run the ball than throw it. He's not a pure quarterback, and they may be playing catch up from the beginning. And so I think this thing could get out of control. I'm along with you. I'm going to take the Cowboys. I'm going to give up those points.
Yeah, I mean, what they're trying to do by playing Taysom Hill here is, time of possession. And they're assuming they're going to be able to run against this Cowboy defense, which maybe they'll be able to pull off for a quarter. But I'm with you. I'm just not seeing it at all.
All right, my next game is the football team is at the Raiders, which is suddenly a pretty interesting football game. And the over-under is 50.5. I'm going to play the over-under in this game. Washington they're kind of an interesting team to watch. I mean, I think Taylor Heineke kind of makes them interesting. They've had a pretty decent defense for the last couple of years. But Heineke, I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago. He kind of reminds me of a young Brett Favre. And then I think 2 or 3 times during the game last week, they mentioned that his favorite player was Brett Favre, and he wore the same number as a result of that. And he's not Brett Favre, but he is entertaining to watch, and he's a gamer, and he plays hard, and he never gives up on a play. The Raiders, they finally showed some signs that their offense was getting out of a funk last week. Scored 31 points or whatever it was against the Cowboys. That was a good game offensively for them. And so one would think that the offenses should dominate, but I'm going to go in the other direction. I think it's going to go under the 50.5. And the reason is that, Heineke is a guy that likes to never give up on a play, and he likes to scramble around, and he likes to run a little bit. Well, the Raiders that's their strength on defense, is that they can rush. And so I think it really limits Heineke's ability to make plays and extend plays. And therefore, I think we have a lower scoring game because that takes Terry McLaurin a little bit out of the game. And it kind of makes them run the ball a little bit more. And their running game has been a little spotty this year. So I'm saying that the Raiders offense takes a step back from where they were last week. Washington does have a good defense. And I think Heineke struggles a little bit this week. That's why I'm going the under at 50.5 on the football team at the Raiders.
I've been dying to say, you, sir, are no Brett Favre to Heineke. I mean, he plays a lot like Favre. He just like the arm strength. He has about 50% of Brett Favre's arm strength, but he does play a lot like him. And that's really accurate. We have this sheet that we put together where we put, we sort of keep track of what we're going to be posting, and I put under or over on my side of the fence because I had to give this a little bit more thought, if you will. I had to sleep on it, a little osmosis last night. Put the laptop underneath my pillow, trying to come up with a way of really thinking about this game, because it definitely has me stumped. And the reason it has me stumped is the Washington secondary is horrific right now. It is a secondary that I believe the Raiders are going to eat up. And so my question was like, do I think the Raiders are going to eat it up and they're going to score 35 points in this game, and Washington's still going to get its 20, and I would then be going with the over. This is why I'm baffled, because I know how bad the Washington football team secondary is, and I'm 3 games behind you, Brad, and I'm thinking, is this an area? Is this a chance? Is this a risk I want to take? And I think the answer on this is no. I'm going to go ahead and agree with you on the under. It's hard for me to see this Raider team, scoring 35 points, as I mentioned. So I'll go ahead and reluctantly agree with you on the under.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be one thing if they had a healthy Darren Waller and they still had Henry Ruggs around,
right?
But they don't.
Right.
And running game hasn't been great. Josh Jacobs has had his moments, but without Ruggs in that lineup now, and without a healthier Darren Waller, I mean, you're talking about guys like Foster Moreau and just Renfro's had a nice little year, but he's not really a stretch the field guy.
Yeah.
I don't see the ability to strike quickly with that team. Even though they scored 31 last week on the Cowboys, but it seems like everybody's scoring 31 on the Cowboys, right? So the Cowboys defense is fun and exciting. They make a lot of turnovers, but they also give up a ton of points. And so I think you're making a smart choice there.
Thanks for that. I'm really that's about as on the fence as I've been in quite some time. Now, this next game I'm not on the fence at all about, which is the Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are favored by 3. I believe the Patriots are going to win this game. I think a lot of people right now in the media, as well as in odds bettors and makers and people who are betting on these things are sort of the opinion that they need another week. They need another week of the Patriots continuing this win streak before they'll really believe it. And I've seen and heard that numerous times throughout the first couple of days of this particular week. I don't need another week. I believe that Belichick knows how to shut down this Buffalo Bills offense. Remember, it is an extremely one-dimensional offense. They will not run the ball against the Patriots. They will not run the ball against the Patriots. The Patriots will blitz when they have to. They'll stay in zone most of the time. They are going to find a way to win this game. I think it will be ugly, but I'm taking your 3 points, saying thank you, and hopefully you'll go with the Bills because you'll be wrong.
I am absolutely going with the Bills, 100%. This is the biggest game of the year right now for Buffalo. I saw some signs last week of them getting out of their funk. I think you have 2 really good defensive football teams. That's what you've got. And I think it comes down to a handful of players. And I just think that the Bills have got more playmakers. And yeah, they're a little more one-dimensional. And Bill Parcells is the master of taking away the number 1 option. But the Bills have more than one option. They have 3 or 4 options. And I just feel like I've said it all along, and I'll say it again. I just still don't think New England is a great offensive football team. I think they're doing things that they want to do well. I think you have the master tactician running the show, the greatest coach of all time. I mean, the fact that they are in first place is an unbelievable testament to that guy's ability to get guys to play within his system and get them up to play every single week. They never seem to be out of a game, but I think they could be out of this game in the third quarter, Dave. I'm going to take the Bills. I think they win big and send a statement to the rest of the league that, yes, we are here to stay in the AFC for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think we definitely disagree here. I think we both agree that a statement will be sent. I think we just disagree who's going to be actually sending the statement.
I think one of us will be making a statement next week.
That's absolutely correct. I can't wait next week on the show to pull up the running numbers, the stats, because this Patriot team is one of the reasons they're playing so well is they took away a little bit of the Bill Belichick control over the draft this year. They had more people with more input, and they had a really good draft. Obviously, the 8 players that opted out last year on the defensive side of the ball are back. And momentum is heading in the right direction. Look, I don't think the Patriots are going to run the table. I think they'll have a hiccup along the way. But this is a statement game. Don't be fooled at all. Belichick is going to find a way to disturb Josh Allen, which is bad for me on the fantasy football side of the fence. But I just believe this Patriot running game is so strong that it will offset, any of the arm strength issues that Mac Jones actually really has.
All right, my next game is the Ravens at the Steelers. It's a classic, divisional showdown between two tough teams from tough cities, and usually it's pretty tough to pick the winner. But in this particular instance, the Ravens are a 4.5-point favorite on the road. I think there's a reason they're a 4.5-point favorite on the road. It's because the Steelers aren't very good right now. And I watched them play last weekend, Dave, and I was ready to put the dagger in them. They look like a team that is cooked. They got absolutely smoked by the Bengals, which just shouldn't happen in the world. Steelers should never get smoked by the Bengals. It's a sign that it could be the end of the Ben Roethlisberger era. And, you're now starting to get a quarterback there in Baltimore, Jackson, who is supposed to be more healthy this week. He was sick. He was kind of not his self the last couple of weeks. But going on the road, this is a big game for Baltimore. I think the Steelers they'll show their last gas effort, but I think the Ravens have just got too much here. The Steelers defense can't stop anybody right now. I'm going to take the Ravens. I'm going to give the 4.5. I'm not happy about the 4.5. I think it's a little high, but I still feel pretty comfortable that Baltimore is a better football team.
Yeah, and last I heard, Watt was going to be out of this game as well. So the Steelers, best defender isn't even going to be in the game, which is, trying to contain, assuming Lamar Jackson is sort of back to the level that he's at. Look, this this Baltimore Ravens team is so unpredictable. You just don't know, from half to half, which team is going to show up. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Steelers were winning 14-10 at halftime. It's just that the Ravens seem to make really strong adjustments in the second half of most games that they're behind in. And I looked at this, and this felt like one of the easier games of the week to pick for me. I think this is going to be the first real losing season that Mike Tomlin has to suffer through as a head coach in the National Football League. And I just don't see the Steelers minus Watt and a few other key defenders being able to slow down the roll, if you will, of this Baltimore Ravens team.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers to me look like the worst team in their division.
Yeah.
Right now, Cincinnati, I think you'd have to say, is probably playing the best football. Baltimore is always tough. They haven't lost that much, even though, they haven't looked that great the last couple of weeks. Cleveland is still a good football team that can run the ball and play some defense at times. Steelers just look like a team that's decimated to me. Their offensive line is just not keeping their quarterback upright. The defense has got holes all over it. It looks like a team that is, in a couple of weeks from now, might be playing for nothing.
Yeah. Speaking of bad football, Brad, you talk about, the Steelers defense. How about Dan Campbell and his Detroit Lions at home against the Minnesota Vikings? Vikings are favored by 7. My favorite text of all of last week had to have been, the real Kirk Cousins has shown up. It was, I think I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to that effect. And we saw it last week. I don't think we'll see it this week in Detroit. It'd be very easy to see a Viking team that was, out of the playoffs, and not in the midst of a playoff run, even with the same roster going into Detroit and losing the game. But they are right in the middle of an opportunity to make the playoffs this year, especially with the extension the extra teams in the playoffs as we move forward. I just see this game is just way too important for Minnesota to take this Lions team lightly. And I really believe that this is going to be one of those games that if you're a Viking fan, you might actually get into the fourth quarter and you might actually be able to breathe. Yeah. You don't need your oxygen tank. If you're watching every single Viking game as I am, there have been no easy wins. There's been no easy losses. It has been close, sort of every single week. This would be the week where I think they're going to win handily. I'm going with the Vikes in this one.
Well, everybody's been throwing around the stat the last couple of weeks that now the Vikings are the only team. There's only 22 teams. I heard this week, Dave. 22 teams in the history of the NFL that have started all 11 games. They've had at least a 7-point lead. There's only 22 of them that have ever done it. There's only one of them that was under 500 at the time. Can you tell me who that is?
That's the Vikings. Absolutely.
That's right. So, this is the mysterious team of all time if you're Minnesota. But the line, interestingly, is 7. So we know at some point the Vikes are going to have a 7-point lead, right? So can they play the rest of the game even? That's the question. I say they do. Detroit looked like a defeated team last week. They had played great, hard football, despite only, tying a game or something against Pittsburgh. They had played pretty hard up until Thanksgiving. And they looked like a team that had given up on Thanksgiving. They just didn't look good at all. And I think you have to give credit to Dan Campbell for hanging in there, but it's not an overwhelming roster that he's got. Another stat I looked up I couldn't believe this week is that the Vikings lead the NFL in sacks. Well, what is it that Jared Goff can't do? He can't avoid a rush, right?
Yeah.
So I see the Vikings defense getting some turnovers. I think they win comfortably. I'm with you. I'm taking the Vikes and giving the 7.
Yeah. When I heard that stat, my immediate thought is sacks must be way down, like 40% down this year over last year.
Go figure.
So it is an interesting stat. Nonetheless, Mr. Hoysef, what do you got for us next?
All right, I got the Colts at the Texans. I don't really like either team. I don't enjoy watching either one of them play. I don't like their stadiums. I don't like their uniforms. I don't really like, but I had to pick another game. The Colts are an 8.5-point favorite on the road at Houston. Houston seems to be playing a little bit better football these days. The problem is that the Colts have really figured things out offensively. If you just give the ball to Jonathan Taylor, nobody can stop you. I don't think that Houston's a team that's going to get in the way. I'm going to give the 8.5, and I'm going to take the Colts.
Yeah, I'm not a hater of where the Texans play their games, but I will say this: I do not understand when a new stadium is built in the National Football League why they don't take sound into account more. If you think back to the Colts' previous Lucas Oil Field. In their previous stadium, like it was like the old Metrodome in Minnesota. It was all loud, and it was, it was really, really loud in both of those stadiums. And they build these new fancy stadiums, and they're just not as loud, Brad. They just aren't. And plus, I think not to go too far off the deep end. Like Lucas Oil Field looks crappy. It looks like a crappy stadium. It is like the Walmart version of what they did at AT&T in Dallas. By the way, made by the same company, as well as the same company that produced the new stadium in Minnesota. And you can see all three stadiums have very similar elements to them. It's just that the Lucas Oil Field version of those two stadiums got the short end of the Sam's Club. I mean, it's the Sam's Club.
Dave, if you have if you have 3 kids, odds are one of them is going to be ugly, right? I mean, that's my theory.
The baby's born. Not all babies are cute.
Okay. Not all are born equal.
That's right. So like you, I will go ahead and take the Colts in this game. I actually did start sitting through Hard Knocks mid-season, the Colts show last night. And if any of you have a chance to check it out, it's different than the preseason Hard Knocks. So far I'm a episode and a half in, and good reviews. 8.5 points is a lot of points, but we are talking about the Texans here, so I'll go with the Colts as well.
Yeah, I really like that coaching staff for Indianapolis. I think they do a really nice job. They're probably the least emotional coaching staff I've ever seen. There's never any sense of urgency. You don't see it in their face. They don't argue. They don't complain. They just go about their business, and they methodically take you apart. I think the Colts are just a much better football team.
You got to check out the HBO Max Hard Knocks stuff. I was like, I want to like put a shock collar on Frank Reich just to wake him up occasionally, because he's got like delayed reactions over everything. But it is a really good coaching staff. If you sort of think of where they were pre Frank Reich, the organization is definitely heading in the right way. And this is an example of a head coach that understands talent, understands capabilities, and understands what people how to put people into positions that will allow them to flourish. I'm really thinking of Frank Reich's a really good leader, and while he might not be the guy that's constantly yelling, and yes, he does look like he's falling asleep sometimes in the middle of games, he really does have his temperature on the players and everybody on this team. So I think the Colts organization as a whole is in good shape, minus their stadium. Okay, moving on. Giants at the. Is there a worse quarterback in the National Football League than Daniel Jones? I brought this up maybe 3 weeks ago, and I said, Daniel Jones, I'm done. The Daniel Jones experiment is officially over. It is time for Daniel Jones to get used to holding a clipboard, get used to being the second or third quarterback in a quarterback room. The Daniel Jones experiment has not worked out for the Giants. They are going to have to make some tough decisions. I recommend they bench him sooner than later. Despite all of that, the Giants are still sort of in the playoff race. I sort of look at this game. This is a Dolphins team that's actually playing better, has put together a nice little win streak. This game's going to be at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. I'm going with the Dolphins, and I'm willing to give up the 3 in this one.
Yeah, I'm right along with you there. I've been saying for weeks, I think the coaching staff in New York is going to be the first ones to go in the league, even though it'll be just a very short tenure for them. I don't know how they survive. I think they look terrible as a football team, and I don't think it's really the coach's fault that the organization just hasn't put guys on the field. But I really like what I'm seeing in Miami right now. They got how many have they won in a row? 5, 6 games in a row, something like that, maybe even more. They're red hot, and they got a young kid by the name of Jalen Waddle, who I think is quickly emerging as one of the better young wide receivers in the league. Had a big week again last week. We saw last year how they could play defense, and they struggled a lot during the early part of the season on defense this year. But they seem red hot, and when the team is red hot, it means they got a lot of confidence. And the guys on the other side don't seem like they have any confidence whatsoever. I thought the line was pretty low. I thought it was one of the easier games to pick this week. I'm right with you. I'm taking the Dolphins. I'm giving up the, 3 points?
Yep. You're giving up the 3 points. I mean, to put this in perspective, the Giants are 4-7 coming into this game. The Dolphins are 5-7 coming into this game. And the Dolphins have won 4 in a row. And I talk a lot over the last 24 months about Brian Flores and how much I like him as a head coach. And I'm not even going to say get into an Adam Gase rant at all here. But it's nice to see, because he's one of the younger coaches in the National Football League I really, really like. And I think, injuries definitely hurt him and his team this year, as well as, the old man from Scooby-Doo that said I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those darn kids.
That's right.
That is the ownership group. That is the Miami Dolphins that thought it was a good idea to mess with this team this year by considering bringing in Deshaun Watson while he has 22 plus civil suits against him for alleged sexual harassment. So that had an effect. Those things affect teams, and I don't care how good you are as a leader. That's going to affect teams. So I think now that that ship has sailed, you can see this Dolphin team is playing a lot better. And I'm with you. This is going to be the week. I mean, this is the problem. The problem with this New York Giants football team is the fact that they're 4-7, and everybody in New York is thinking about last year still, and they're still like they haven't given up yet. And I'm not saying they should, but you're going to get beat by like 10 points by the Dolphins this weekend, and the regime change, including the general manager, is something that's going to need to happen. And the Giants fans are going to have to suffer through another 3-year rebuild.
Yeah, Daniel Jones just doesn't see the field well. I mean, they paid Kenny Golladay a ton of money to come there, and he's supposed to be healthy now. I mean, he's been back off of injury now for 2 weeks. He missed a number of weeks with, a minor knee injury, which led me to believe that maybe he didn't want to be out there. But ever since he's gotten back on the field, I watched their games, and Daniel Jones is not even looking his way. And Kenny Golladay is a pretty good football player. If you're not getting the ball in the hands of the guys that can make plays, and you're focusing on the young kids that you think can make plays, I don't know. It just seems like the organization is going in the wrong direction.
I have to say too, his mechanics have not gotten better. He's a gamer. I mean, he can run the ball. He's not one dimensional, but I think he's a great backup. That's really what I think. And I think he needs, some help with his mechanics. And you see him, constantly, diving into, come sail away with me. Must be playing in his head when he throws a ball over somebody's head 10 yards.
Well, I saved my favorite game for last, Dave, and it's the Eagles at the Jets. And you know why I did this? I did this because if I could get rid of the Eagles and the Jets every week in this Gods of Odds show, my record would be a lot better. I never seem to get it right. So I figured I finally found a game where they're both playing each other. And so I don't know why that equates to I'm going to get it right. But it's the Eagles at the Jets. Eagles are 6.5-point favorites. Eagles are still kind of playing for something. The Jets are not. And the Jets look like a really bad football team at times. They just have quarters where they just fall asleep and give up like 28 points. And so I think the Eagles need it more. I think they're a better young football team. They can run the ball really well. The Jets don't do real well at stopping the run. I'm going to take the Eagles on the road at 6.5. That's a little bit much for me. It's a little rich for my blood, but one of these times I'm going to get this game right. Every week I say I'm not picking the Jets and I'm not picking the Eagles because I screw it up every week. I saw these two playing each other and I said I got to do
it. Can we just predict that this game's going to end in a tie and win some money off of that? Look, where I've been with the Eagles. You know how I feel about the Eagles coaching staff. It's all very positive. The reason I would even, consider not going with the Eagles this week is obviously we saw what happened last week with them. But Jalen Hurts is hurt. We're not really sure if he's going to play or not play at this point. And even if he does play, I'm still, sort of questioning, sort of where his health really is. Look, the bruises and nicks and muscle issues and soreness in the in your ribs and elbows, Brad. It affects people in different ways, and some quarterbacks just don't deal with it well. I mean, we didn't talk about Dalvin Cook not playing potentially this weekend with the Vikings. And there's the question of, if he does play, he'll have a shot. And some people can perform well under those circumstances and others don't. I suspect, just based on what I've seen with Jalen, that he just doesn't play well when he's hurt. So I'm sort of betting on that. And it's a lot of points. The Jets every 3 or 4 weeks put together a decent game. I'm just saying this is going to be the week that happens.
Yeah, if they could get their quarterback stop throwing the football to the other team, I would take the Jets. I said earlier in the year I'll never take the Jets again the rest of the year. I'm going to live by that, and I'm going to take the Eagles and give the 6.5.
Yeah. Okay. So for our last pick, I saved the biggest line of the day, which is the Teddy Bridgewater. I can't help but laugh. Teddy, every time we think Teddy Bridgewater is just terrible, he proves us wrong, Brad, doesn't he?
Not really. No, he doesn't.
He doesn't. He seems to like how else can you explain? I mean, like this Denver Bronco team, right? What is their record? They are 6-5. This Bronco team, right? 6-5. Like, one of the coaches I know you're actively trying to get fired is in jeopardy of not getting fired because they're 6-5. It's a 10-point spread. It's Kansas City at home. Andy Reid historically always has his teams ready to play after they've had a bye week. Will they come out sluggish? Maybe. Will they turn it on? Yes. Do I see them winning by 10 points or more? Yes. Do I wish the line was smaller? Yes. With all of those things being said, I have no faith in Teddy Bridgewater and this Denver Bronco offense at all, even despite the fact that it's going up a pretty weak Kansas City Chief defense.
Yeah, it is a weak Chief defense, but part of the reason they've been bad this year is they seem to get beat deep a lot. Teddy Bridgewater doesn't throw the ball deep. He's Mr. Check Down. He throws it underneath. If you need 12 yards, he'll throw a pass that's going to get you 9. He loves to throw to the running backs and the tight ends, but he really is. He doesn't have that arm strength anymore to throw it deep. I saw the Chiefs make some strides before they went on the bye, and I just kind of feel like, that gave them an extra week to sort things out. I think Denver's a good young football team. I don't think they're great. At weeks they can look really good. Other weeks they don't look so good. I'm with you. They're going onto a hostile environment in Kansas City. The Chiefs want to show their fans that they're back. They've had a week off. They should be well prepared against the Broncos team that is led by a quarterback that just isn't all that great. And we'll see what it is a big line. I'm with you. I think 10 is a lot. But, Kansas City's capable of scoring 10 points in about 30 seconds. So I'm going to take the Chiefs with you there. I just don't think that the Broncos can match Kansas City point for point.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they can at all. So there you go. That is our top 10 games worth actually spending some money on this week for week 13 of your National Football League season. Brad, we didn't cover this game at all, but I had to bring it up at the end which is Urban Myers, who checked out before he even got to Jacksonville, is coming into this game a 13-point underdog. Now, I have to bring this up because Brad is in beautiful Southern California, and I know how into Sean McVay Brad isn't at this point. And you know how I feel about Matthew Stafford. And in fact, at this point, I would have to ask you, are you starting to see what I've been saying about Matthew Stafford actually being on the backside of career mountain?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I've never been a huge Matthew Stafford guy. I thought he had great arm strength as a kid coming out of college. I thought he was a tough kid playing for Detroit in a bad organization. But I never thought he was a great, fantastic football player. We've seen a lot of those similar things here in Los Angeles. And you mentioned Sean McVay. You got some text messages from me over the weekend on Sean McVay that I'm just done with Sean McVay. He's a good-looking young guy, fits in perfectly in the Hollywood area. But I think it's all a mirage. I don't think he's a great football coach. I don't like his offense at all. They did start throwing it a little bit downfield this week. I actually have Matthew Stafford as my backup on my fantasy team, Dave, and I'm playing him this week because I think the Rams have finally figured out we've got to throw the ball downfield a little bit. And perfect opportunity. They got the Jaguars, who are, one of the worst teams in the league with nothing to play for. But, would it surprise you at all if you woke up in the third quarter and this game was much closer than you thought it was going to be? I just don't have any belief in Sean McVay at this point. But the Rams are a much more talented football team. Is there a softer team with great defensive players than the Rams? I mean, they seem to get pushed around. How do you get pushed around with Ndamukong Suh and some of the guys they got up front? And seemingly, when another team needs 1.5 yards, 2 yards for first down, the Rams just can't stop them. I don't get this team at all. They're a complete mystery to me. That's why I stayed away from the game. But, Sean McVay is going to be around for a long time. His team's got a good record, but I think it's all a fraud. I think that team is loaded with talent, and he is just not getting the best out of it whatsoever.
Look, the Rams were successful with Sean McVay early on. The offense was different, if you remember the first couple of years of Sean McVay there. And the big difference was you had, a young Todd Gurley at running back, right? And the injuries in that position, so like Bill Belichick couldn't believe he actually was able to trade Sony Michel. He's like, so I got a 7th round draft pick for him. It's better than nothing, whatever it is he got for Sony Michel. That is, I think one of the big issues. And then I think you take away, Robert Woods, and it is like you sort of like, I'm sort of sitting back and I'm like, it's like we might find out really how bad this Rams team is this particular weekend if Jacksonville even comes close to winning this game. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but if they're scaring up a W, if the Jaguars are scaring down the barrel of a W at any point in the fourth quarter of this game, I mean, it definitely is going to say, look, Sean McVay's offensive strategy is completely off at this point. And I don't think
I would argue that it's the same offensive strategy that he had when he had Todd Gurley and all those guys. It's just that defenses have figured it out. It's way too much east-west. Yeah. It's not enough north-south. They looked dangerous last week with OBJ. Remember I said that a few weeks ago. OBJ needs to come in and demand the ball and go deep. Yeah. They finally did some of those things. I don't know if it's going to be a weekly thing now or if it was just a one-off. But this is a team that's a complete mystery. Look, they're one of the best teams in football on paper. The Jags are one of the worst teams in football. And neither one of us wanted anything to do with it.
Nothing to do with this game. And that's even despite the fact that Urban Myers is the head coach. a guy that clearly doesn't want to be in the National Football League, as a head coach at this point. All right.
Hey, I had one more name. This is the name to watch out for this week, Dave. I'm only going to say it one time. Watch out for this guy, Matt Breida. That's my name of the week, Dave. Matt Breida, Buffalo Bills.
Yeah,
gonna hurt your Patriots. Gonna hurt your Patriots this week.
I rip on the Bills for not having a running game. And Matt Breida, if he's healthy, I really like him. He also really catches the ball well out of the backfield.
He's just starting to get used to the offense. I think Josh Allen probably went to the coaching staff, said, "Look, you got to get me something. These guys just aren't working out at running back. I don't feel safe running the football to them. They can't." Matt Breida is a tough guy. He's a gamer. I think they feel confident now that they've got a guy they can hand the ball off to, and he's not going to fumble it, and he's not going to, flounder it away.
I never understood why the 49ers let him walk out the door. But they did. And, he's been traveling the National Football League circuit ever since and has found his way to Buffalo. Still not changing my opinion on that. I will still be making a statement next week. And we'll pull up. This is even more fuel for my fodder. I will pull up the rushing stats between Matt Breida and the New England Patriots, and we'll have that up for next week's show. Listen,
by the way, Joe Mixon right now, the Joe Mixon watch, he's number 3 in the NFL in rushing yardage. Number 1 is Jonathan Taylor. Can you tell me who's number 2?
He's probably out with an injury.
That's right. Derrick Henry is still number 2. How bad a year is it for running backs? Derrick Henry's still number 2. The guy's been out of the league for 5 weeks?
It took Jonathan Taylor 3 weeks of him being out to catch him. By the way, I mean, Jonathan Taylor's a great running back, and he really is. And he's fun to watch. I just don't think the Colts used him in the right way early in the season. Anyways, too much reliance. The Colts got better, Brad, when they started to scale back what Carson Wentz was being asked to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, all right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us on this week's Gods of Odds. We hope everybody had a fantastic holiday weekend last weekend. That is Brad Hoysef over there in beautiful Southern California wearing his Paul Bunyan championship wearing Minnesota Golden Gopher hoodie. I'm Dave
Matt Breida, people. Matt Breida.
Yeah, I'm Dave DeBob in Northern California, trying to support the Los Angeles Chargers, but failing. At the end of the day, we wish everybody a happy rest of your week, and definitely enjoy all of your football viewing.
God here, and thanks for tuning in to the Gods of Odds. For more semi-witty sports commentary, please make sure you check out Mighty.Rip. Okay, go ahead and kill the music now.